he wants to show us his will. He wants to show us what's true and what's right. And so we have to yield to him and rely on him when we make decisions. He was the 3rd overall pick for the Charlotte Bobcats. I grew the stash. I went all in, and he was a total letdown. It was devastating. Absolutely devastating.
That is an unbelievable reality that a perfect God would die for me and save me.
And if you know anything about me, I don't like the field goal kickers. Now, I like them as individuals. Some of them have been on the show over the years. Some of them I've met in person, and I love them. They're great people. However, in those types of moments, I don't want to see the kicker.
Welcome to the Unpacking It Live podcast. I'm Bryce Johnson with Luke Heaton, Henry Bienamine, Chris Allison. We're here for the next hour to unpack sports, faith, and life with the Unpacking It community of sports fans. And so we are so grateful you are with us, either live or all of our loyal podcast listeners as well. Thank you so much for listening. And you may say, wait, it's Tuesday. Where were you yesterday? Sorry about that. It was unfortunate. It was a major emergency at the Johnson household. As many of you know, Jody is pregnant, and thankfully everyone is okay at this point. But yesterday, her heart rate, Jody's, went up to 216, which is just unbelievable. And she's just sitting there at the house, and so that's maybe a rate that if you're running around, you could get to. But anyway, her heart is going nuts. And so we had to go to the emergency room yesterday morning and stayed there for a good part of the day. Very scary, but she is doing well. The doctors were able to get the heart to calm down. And she does have just kind of a concern with that when she's pregnant, that this type of episode can happen. And so anyway, that it's sad, it's tough, it's challenging, but thankfully she is okay and she can get through it. So that was where we were yesterday. So we are here on Tuesday doing our normal Monday show. For some of you maybe checking us out live for the first time, glad to have you here. We're going to talk about the NFL draft. We will talk about some of the big NFL storylines taking place following the draft. And then how about the Aaron Rodgers news that took place moments before the draft, basically, and it kind of hijacked some of the story of the draft as well. So we'll get into that. Lots of reaction from the weekend. And also during the Unpack This segment, we will do NFL draft grades, but talk about how NFL draft grades relate to our lives and our faith journeys and our view of God. And so we'll have a little fun with that and this idea that all these experts throw out their grades moments after the draft, moments after players are drafted, instant reaction, instant grades. And so we'll get into that in just a little bit. Before we do, I'm convinced, and we say good morning to the guys. Let me ask you this. Do you need to get your own health insurance? Well, go to healthmarketgenius.com. Know your options, healthmarketgenius.com. Support them as they support us. Luke Heaton is coming to us from Texas. He is with us. Luke, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Bryce. It is great to be here on this lovely Tuesday. I am fresh off another wedding from the weekend. Very different from the one 2 weekends ago.
It's wedding season.
With the Don. It is wedding season, but excited to chop it up with you guys this morning.
Well, I know you love the NFL draft, so I'm excited to hear some of your thoughts. And your Cowboys found themselves in an interesting position in the first round, and same with the Panthers. And so in just a couple of moments, we'll actually be joined by the biggest Panther fan that I know. So he's a bigger fan than I am, and he was at the draft. He was on stage. He was with Roger Goodell. And so we will get his thoughts on all of it, and he'll tell us all about the experience. And so I'm waiting for him to call in just a moment. And before we bring him on, Luke, I'm going to tell you what I'm convinced of, and then you can tell us what you're convinced of after the call with Shane. And so here's what I'm convinced of. I'm convinced that it is really, really hard to follow your dad into the NFL, to be the son of a professional athlete and actually make it to that level. However, if a guy can get there, it is absolutely impressive. And I've got a good bit of confidence that that player can end up having a nice career if he gets there. And so, you can look across the board. There are multiple examples of, sons of players in the NFL and how they pan out. But this year in the draft, I'm convinced that it's one of the great storylines from this year's draft, that we saw at least 3 guys who were drafted that their dad also played in the league. And so, of course, my Carolina Panthers, they took J.C. Horn, whose father is Joe Horn. And here's what I love about this story. And here's why I think it's so difficult to actually make it. Because many NFL players, the reason that they make it to the league is because they are so hungry. They're so passionate. They've got the skills, and a lot of guys have skills, but to actually, maximize those skills and have the drive to get there. If you're the son of an NFL player and things are handed to you and you grow up, living the high life, you're not motivated. You're not motivated to get to the NFL. But what Joe Horn did for J.C. Horn, I was reading about it. He put him in the league where it wasn't, the nice fields. It wasn't all the nice equipment. J.C. Horn was playing as a little kid in maybe a more difficult league, as far as, it's not all the advantages, so to speak. And that's why he's hungry. That's part of the drive. And so I love that about J.C. Horn. And so at first I wasn't convinced of the Panthers pick, but now a few days later, I'm coming around on it. And part of it is because his dad played in the NFL, didn't make it easy for him. And now he does have that blueprint of what it takes to actually last in the NFL. Joe Horn had a nice career. He was a very good receiver with the New Orleans Saints. I think he finished his career with the Falcons. And so J.C. Horn is coming in with confidence. He's coming in with an understanding of what the NFL life is like, and the good, the bad, lessons learned, all that. He's got his dad in his corner. And so again, things weren't handed to him. Now, you can look at the Manning brothers. They were almost the mode or the process, and they fit into this factory of producing quarterbacks. So that's one route to go, right? I don't know how easy or hard it was for them growing up. I'm sure there were certain things that made it easier being Archie Manning's son, especially with both of them, getting the league and now having Hall of Fame careers. Eli questionable, but probably will get into the Hall of Fame. And so it's just a fascinating thing to keep up with and notice where how many guys actually are sons of NFL players. It's very rare. But then this year to see Asante Samuel, his son made it, and then Patrick Surtain, also both those guys were drafted. So I'm excited about J.C. Horn, and I think there's a guy on the line right now who's even more excited than me. And so I'm excited to bring on to the show right now a good friend of mine, a supporter of Unpacking It, part of the Unpacking It community. He was representing the Panthers and in some ways representing Unpacking It at the draft this year. His name is Shane Triplett, and he's going to tell us the story about how he ended up there. It's remarkable. Shane, good morning. How are you, man?
Good morning. Hey, good to talk to you.
Hey, great to have you, buddy. And so first off, tell us how you ended up at the draft, sitting in the commissioner's chair on stage, but it began a short few weeks ago for this opportunity even to present itself.
Yeah, so last year, people who watched the draft last year will remember that Goodell did his draft virtually from his basement, and each team, when they were up to pick, they had fans on the TV behind them. So me and my family were one of the ones that participated in that, and that was organized by each individual team to recruit people. And so I thought when I saw that each team was going to get to have ambassadors at the draft this year, I thought, well, I'll reach out to the person that coordinated that last year. And I did that, and I just happened to have a couple spots that they were looking to fill. So just by sending an email and having a conversation, ended up getting to go. And yeah, it was insane to get to go participate in that.
Well, so not only did you get to participate, but they paid for you to go. You were taken care of, right?
Yeah, I had planned to drive and had already reserved a hotel, but then they offered to pay for our hotel. They booked our flights for us, and we were really taken care of, and they're definitely a first-class organization. I'm very happy with.
Oh, my goodness. I love it. And so you were able to take one of our good buddies, Mike Coulter, with you. And so you guys were able to experience it. And so many years over the years, I've watched the draft with Shane and Mike. And these guys are diehard draft guys, much more so than me, but they're also diehard Panthers fans. And so there you were at the draft representing in Cleveland. And so take us into the experience. What was it like, especially the first round, and then take us into what it turned out like throughout the weekend?
Yeah, it was really surreal just walking into the draft theater. It feels so much bigger than it does on TV when you walk in.
Wow.
And the lights, they have screens everywhere, showing graphics and whatnot. But it felt really exclusive to be like in that team group where each team had only 12 people on the floor. And so that creates just an awesome atmosphere just with each team, and they were grouped by division. So we were sitting next to the other NFC South team representatives. And and the first round, seeing the prospects that were able to come on stage was really cool. Seeing them come out and the drama, it was. I still am kind of at a loss for words of how awesome it was.
Well, and it was your birthday last week. I mean, you were living the dream. And then so you ended up actually meeting Roger Goodell and being able to take a picture with him. So what was that like?
Yeah, so after the first round was over, people were kind of clearing out, and we were about to leave, and I kind of noticed there was a crowd forming down right in front of the stage, and I was like, oh, right, Roger Goodell came down to take some pictures. And we walked over and got in line. Like most people had already started to leave, so waited a few minutes and got to meet him and say hello and take a picture. That was really awesome, and he was still there throughout the rest of the time too, so he was definitely being really good with the fans and coming around, meeting people, taking pictures. It seemed like all 3 days. And so he was, I think people used to have kind of a certain opinion of him. That's why he was originally booed. It used to be when he came on stage, but now it's almost more endearing.
It's a great tradition. It's a great tradition. I love it. Every time. Start off the draft booing the commissioner. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, so then over the weekend, you were able to get on stage and actually sit in his recliner that he had last year during the draft in his basement, which ended up being a pretty funny, clever idea, and then a pretty sweet experience for you. I mean, how did you end up getting there, and what was the pick that you got to be up there for?
Yeah, so a league rep would come by before each team was up to ask, to try to get somebody to go up on stage and sit in the chair. And so it was just kind of ended up getting lucky and it being my turn to go do it. And so I went up there and sat, and Kemp Rasmussen came out to make the pick for the Panthers. He used to play defensive end back in the 90s for us. So it was cool to get to chat with him for a minute. And Terrace Jefferson was the pick from LSU, the receiver, which I think was an awesome value pick. I knew it was a need going in, and getting to see that, and I stood next to him as they dropped down the screen. Actually, I don't think you can really see that on TV, but the virtual prospects, they would drop a screen down in front of the podium after they were selected, and you could see the player there with their family celebrating. And so me and Kemp stood next to each other while they did that and kind of welcomed them to the league, basically. And then once that was done, we walked off together and chatted for a minute. So,
I love it, man. That is so cool. And you've got the pictures and video to show it and remember it. And so, man, I know you're such a big fan, and I'm thrilled that you got to experience it and appreciate you joining us on Unpacking It to share with our listeners what the experience was like. Because, man, we're a community of sports fans. And so when one of us experienced something cool, we're happy for you, man. So, gosh, just incredible. So appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, and shout out to the Hall of Famers that were there too. They were fun to see. You got to fist bump Bernie Kosar on day 3 too. So that was, legend like he is. That was pretty cool too.
Especially in Cleveland. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Shane. Well, you better get to your work meeting, but thanks for squeezing us in today.
No problem.
All right, man. All right. Appreciate it. We'll see you. All right. There's my buddy Shane joining us here on Unpacking It. And that was awesome. So cool. So when he texted me and told me that he was going to the draft and that the Panthers were covering everything, I go, that doesn't sound right. Like, that seems too good to be true. And part of me was like, wait, is he getting duped? Is this really going to happen? And sure enough, it did. And it ended up being, I think, even better than anticipated, especially being able to get there get on stage in the recliner. I mean, how cool was that?
Cool.
So I'm
sitting in
my
the chair
recliner at home. He's up on his recliner at the draft with Roger Goodell and all that. So pretty cool. But Luke, what'd you think, man? How you doing? Yeah. And we got to hear what you're convinced of today as well.
Yeah, and I love that. It was so funny.
Now. We've lost Luke.
Oh,
all
right.
Can you hear me? So anyway, before we brought Shane on, we were talking about players that had sons and fathers in the NFL, and so just a couple other names to throw out there. Mike Golick Sr., Mike Golick Jr., Randy and Thaddeus Moss, and we'll continue to add those names throughout the morning. And I'm curious which ones jump out to you. Like, I think of Walter Payton, his son Jarrett Payton, who was a guest on Unpacking It. Didn't have a great career, but still, made it and played in the NFL. I think he was with the Titans. And so Chris Sims, Phil Sims, to me, even getting there, I think is actually harder, because I think it's harder for that next generation to work hard enough to get to the NFL. You've got to have the drive and the hunger to do it. Just beyond the talent, because growing up, you're always thinking, oh, well, this kid, he's the son of this player. He's probably really good. Well, no, you still have to work at it. Like, it just doesn't you get some natural ability, God-given ability. And then you have to go out and practice and show up. And you can't just, stand there and say, oh yeah, here, I'm Randy Moss's son. I can catch. Okay, well, yeah, no, that's good. you gotta actually do it. So anyway, 3 guys in this year's draft. That was one of my favorite storylines. Luke, are you with us now? You good?
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Can you hear me?
Still don't have you, so I don't know what happened to Luke. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, man.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that was okay. That was my bad. I turned down Shane and I turned down you at the same time.
Gotcha. You're over here thinking, I was over here thinking, man, what's going on with the technology? The boss man had me muted the whole time. Tough.
I had
tumbling right
there. A few more things I had to get off my chest. Now
that's right. That's right.
But jump in, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it's hilarious watching the draft. Like, Goodell comes out and it's like Shane was saying, he just gets hated on. He's telling, come on, Cleveland, come on. And it's just crickets. And it was just like so brutal. And then this, all right, welcome to the 2021 NFL draft, where each pick, someone gets to sit in my chair. And I'm like, okay, come on. Like, it's certainly cool. Like, I would have done it. I would have for sure done it hands down, but it's just so funny how it was phrased. You can sit in my chair that I did the draft in. The throne from last year's basement. So that was cool. I think what I'm convinced of is this was the most exciting NFL draft that I can remember, because it was so unique and different. One, having the draft back, people in person, was really exciting. And two, it wasn't a unique draft in that many picks in the first round was a complete question mark. It could have gone many different ways. The third pick, there was narratives for Mac Jones, there was narratives for Trey Lance, narratives for Justin Fields. Like, usually in drafts, there's the clear number 1 quarterback, and then the number 2 pick is an absolute beast of a defensive end or pass rusher. And then you kind of get into the corners, or maybe there's a clear O lineman, and it kind of follows this pattern. But this year, we went 3 straight quarterbacks, which we weren't exactly sure which quarterbacks those were going to be. There was no perennial defensive lineman pass rusher that was going to go early. There was it was incredible. So as a Cowboys fan, going into the draft, like there's no all the guys on the radio were like, I'm so excited for this draft because for the first time in 10 years, I have no clue what is going to happen, what player is going to fall. So we're sitting in Dallas, we're all watching the draft, and we're thinking, okay, if J.C. Horn and Surtain go, that is time to panic because we want a corner. They, of course, go 8-9, and we're sitting at 10, and we're like, oh my gosh, trade back, eject, trade back. And we did, and we picked up another top 100 pick. I don't know if I would have picked Parsons, but anyway, I'm convinced this draft was so exciting because there was so many different storylines, so many what ifs, which just makes it so fun.
Absolutely. I thought it was thrilling. And I got to share this though. So I absolutely enjoyed the draft, what I saw. So I got to take you back to Thursday night. I've got to get this off my chest because, as you know, I am a diehard sports fan. However, I do have priorities. And let me even take you back to last week, probably like Tuesday or Wednesday. I told Jody, hey, Thursday night is the NFL draft. So I'm going to be watching the NFL draft. Now, I didn't say it in a mean way. I just say, yeah, Thursday night, I'm going to watch the draft. That's kind of what I got going on. So we'll try to work dinner around that type of thing.
Yep.
Well, she was cool. No problem. Yeah. I was all excited. I texted some buddies, oh yeah, I'm going to have 3 TVs going. I'll, NFL Network, ESPN, ABC. Oh, yeah. I'll be in my own throne in my recliner watching the draft.
That's right.
So Thursday night comes along, all excited, Panthers top 10 pick. And to your point, 3 quarterbacks going early, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Jody makes me aware, hey, tomorrow night we've got we got a fun little get together. We're going to a friend's house. We're going to be cooking out, having a big old time Friday night. Well, we're responsible for making macaroni salad. Everybody's got to bring something. You got to contribute.
Yeah.
So it's Thursday night, and I'm thinking, okay, wait a second. I'm about to watch the draft. What is this? We speak of the macaroni salad. So I go upstairs to kind of get ready and prepare for the draft. And I'm pretty sure this was the Lord giving me a little nudge. You need to go down and help your wife make some macaroni salad.
Mm-hmm.
And this is during the draft. It only happens once a year. The Panthers aren't always a top 10 pick. But there I was watching the first round of the draft, one of the most exciting first rounds of the draft. Peeling eggs, hard-boiled eggs, picking off the little shells. I'm picking off the shells just to make this delicious macaroni salad. And so here's the deal. The Friday event was my doing. This is my guys. I was in a group all year long, a mentor group. And so we were getting together to kind of celebrate the year that was and have all the wives, together. And so here I was, I put it on Jody to make something, macaroni salad. And then I'm thinking, all right, if this is my event, it's in the middle of the draft. I still need to help. And so anyway, I still watched the draft. It wasn't what I expected as far as being as into it as I had hoped, but those hard-boiled eggs were delicious. And the peeling that I did, I got all those shells off. It was shell-free, baby.
Man.
It was the macaroni salad. But I will say this. We bring it Friday night. It got lost. It got lost in the array of food. No. And I, it's not all about getting credit in life. And God continues to humble me and continue to remove that desire for appreciation and whatever, applause. But I would have liked a little shout out on the macaroni salad. I got no love on the macaroni salad, and I'm not sure. It doesn't always make it worth it. However, Jody was okay with me at that night, so that made it all worth it. How about that?
Gosh, you really were playing good husband.
So I chose to be a husband that night.
Yeah,
over
so
sports fan. Over
So
sports
it was,
fan.
that's right. So it was date night for Madeline and me on the NFL draft. It was the only night we could have date night. We have right now we try to do date night every week. We've got the margin for it, so we're going to keep doing date night every week. Thursday was how it lined up. So,
but that should have been blocked out on the calendar.
Well, so should the macaroni and salad. The
that
macaroni
should have been made on another day.
Right. So that we compromised. So we went to pick up food and bring it back. And I had the radio on driving there and was able to listen to the draft. And then I was able to watch some before we left to go pick up the food. And then it was on the radio on the way back. And then when we got back, so I watched like the first half. The first half of the first round. And then it was eat and movie time. And then after the movie. Oh yeah,
we can't do a movie. I'm not picking shells, but I've got the game on.
Hey, it was date night. I was committed as a husband. It was amazing. Great time with the wife. And then after the movie, I dialed up the radio, rewinded on the radio app, and then listened for 2 straight hours and got all caught up. It was a late night. It was crazy. Like, we watched the movie. I was like, babe, love the date night. Love the time with you. I felt like I was a great husband, putting away the draft, spending good quality time with the wife, prioritizing her. And then once date night was over, it was to radio and then it was like class was in session. It was time to finish what happened that night, take notes, get everything in. So
that's great.
It was both of us seemed to have unique viewing experiences of the draft this year.
That's funny. Gosh, yours was even more of a sacrifice than me. I had it on. I was finger deep into some boiled eggs. So anyway, all right. So we watched as much as we could. I ended up watching it was like the 5th, 6th round on Saturday afternoon. I finally was able to get into some good coverage, and my boy Daniel Jeremiah, App State guy, he's one of the best, man. Gosh, the coverage on NFL Network, that's the way to go. Rich Eisen, Charles Davis, it was fantastic. But let's do our segment, Unpack This. It's a little bit later than normal in our show format, but things are loose today. It's a Tuesday. Normally we're on a Monday. But here's what I want to talk about. So during the draft, it's instant response. I mentioned Daniel Jeremiah. Everybody's grading while the draft is going on. How good of a pick was that? How good is that player? How good is the fit? What will this team look like with that player now on their roster? And so it makes sense. Like that, of course, we're watching it as fans. The analysts are there to respond. And what's so interesting, though, is these are instant reactions, instant responses in the moment. Oh, wow. So San Francisco has Trey Lance. Well, they deserve a C grade for that pick, or they deserve an A grade for that. And it depends on the perspective and who's judging and grading the fit and the scenario and the player and all that sort of thing. And so it's crazy to think all the different opinions and perspectives even on certain selections. But what ends up happening is a lot of the teams that got grades of A, B following the draft, Mel Kiper's grades, Todd McShay's grades, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, those players don't pan out. It's like, wait, those are not great picks. And then the flip side happens. People downplay certain selections, and you're like, oh, I can't believe the team drafted that player with a 3rd round pick. I had a 5th round grade on that guy, and I can't believe he went that early. Or you can't believe this guy slipped. And so all of that is taking place, but we haven't seen it play out. We haven't seen how these players play out. And listen, I get it. Like it's fun to acknowledge what we thought in the moment. That's part of the joy of being a fan. I get it. But so often guys get an F grade or teams get an F grade, and we don't have enough understanding of what's really going on with those teams, because maybe they saw something on film that we couldn't see. Maybe they have 3 more moves that they're about to make, or free agent signings that they're about to make. Like certain teams get a a D grade because they didn't fill a certain need. And then 3 weeks from now, they're going to be signing somebody. They're going to be making a trade. People are criticizing the Denver Broncos. Oh, why'd you pass on a quarterback? You didn't draft a quarterback. You need a quarterback. Well, if they end up with Aaron Rodgers, they win. So we'll talk about Aaron in a moment. But okay, so how does this relate to our own lives? So often in life, something happens to us, a circumstance, a situation, news, a phone call, a call into the office, a call home from someone at school about our kids, whatever it is. And our instant response is, well, that's an F. That's a terrible thing. This is a brutal thing. I can't believe this is happening. This is awful. This is the worst. Why is this happening? I can't believe this is happening. What is God doing? Why is God allowing this? And those are understandable questions. It's understandable to respond when we hear bad news and frustration and difficulty and challenges. They pop up and our instant grade is an F. And even I will say on the other side of it, sometimes things happen in life. We're like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And it turns out to be even much harder than we thought. It doesn't necessarily play out as good as we thought it would.
Yep.
But here's the encouragement today. Either way, sometimes circumstances initially feels like an F grade. Sometimes it feels like an A grade. The good news is God is in control. God's ways are higher than our ways. His understanding, his ability to orchestrate, his ability to work things together, he's got it. He knows what he's doing. And sometimes we don't know, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Sometimes we're not going to know until eternity. And then we'll go, oh, that's what God was doing. That's what he was up to. That's why that happened. And we begin to understand, and we see how things play out. And so the instant response, oh, I can't believe this happened. And then we look back 3 years later, we're like, oh, I'm so thankful that happened. What a great pick. That was a great selection for us, right? That it made a difference in our lives. And so let me share a couple verses that I kind of alluded to. But this is, right up there is one of my favorite verses. If you follow Unpacking It, I'll be using this verse many, many times more than today. But it's Romans 8:28. And it says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And so when we're called, when we're with him, when we know him, when we love him, he's working things out for our good. He's working things out for his good. He's working things out for other people's good that ultimately fits into his plans and purposes for this world, for our individual lives. He's orchestrating it all. And sometimes the good is changing our character and stripping ourselves of ourselves, right? And becoming more humble. And sometimes it's to set something else up down the line. And so that's what we have to cling to when the initial grade comes out and we're like, I can't believe this is happening. This is terrible news. And then in Isaiah 55:8-9, this is another reminder where the Lord says, my thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, and my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. And so it's just that reminder that God is God. I am not. I don't know everything. I can't figure it all out. I don't know sometimes where things are heading. I just have to be obedient today. I just have to take the next step. If God's made it clear for me to take the next step, I'm going to do it. And if he makes it evident, draft this guy, select this guy, right? We do it. And then we move forward and we trust that he's going to work things out and make the next step clear for us. And he's going to do incredible things behind the scenes as he works for our good. And so it's just it's a powerful verse. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. God is good. God is faithful. God loves us so much, more than we could ever comprehend or understand. And when we cling to that verse, when tough things happen, we can respond with hope and confidence, knowing that he is in control and that he is good. So you can unpack that today. I hope that's an encouragement. And so Luke, why don't you jump in on draft grades and how that relates to our trust in God and his power and control.
Yeah, draft grades are so fascinating. You're so right. Like, from a common sense perspective, impossible to give an accurate draft grade right now. because there's so much speculation. Like even just looking at the local market in Dallas, the amount of speculation about Micah Parsons is every possible speculation there is. It's like, yeah, we know he's a good player, but he also sat out last year, and he does this well, he doesn't do this well. How's he going to fit in? You can't give an accurate draft grade. But I love your comments on grading things in life. It reminds me of something that encourages me that I have to remind myself of, that I'm convicted of about, is hardships or occurrences or events in life dictate our emotions, but they should never dictate our obedience. And of course, we're always going to fall short of that. But whether something bad happens or something good happens, however we grade it, as an A or an F or a C, whatever, it shouldn't dictate our obedience and our faithfulness in following Jesus. Because if we allow things to just dictate our obedience, we couldn't grow in sanctification. Like, it's okay if something affects your emotions, like something makes you sad or a hard thing happens. Man, that seems like I'm probably going to have to grade that as an F. It's like, man, that's a really hard thing. Or something great happens. Oh man, that's an A+. I'm so happy that happened in my life. I'm so happy I was able to fall into fortune like that. But neither of those things dictate obedience. Whether bad things or good things happen, we still have a call to take up our cross daily, to be obedient, to follow Jesus, and maintain what is lasting and what matters. So whether it's losing a loved one, like I've experienced, that shouldn't dictate my obedience. I'm still called to follow Christ no matter what hard things happen to me. And that's all over the New Testament, as Christians are experiencing heavy persecution in the first 300 years following Christ, some heavy waves of persecution. Paul is persecuted. Peter, James, there's people are martyred in the New Testament, but there's nothing on, well, yeah, take a step back, ease off the gas of your obedience while these hard things happen. No, not at all. It's keep pressing forward, keep in your obedience. And when good things happen, celebrate, rejoice, maintain, be steadfast and obedient. So that's what I'm reminded of, because as Christians, we want to grow in maturity and not allow events to just crush us off course. Like, of course, we want to give ourselves grace, because we're never going to respond perfectly. But whether we have an A grade or an F grade for an event, we don't want that to rock us. Just like an NFL franchise, if they miss on a pick, they don't want that to determine the success of their franchise. If the entire franchise is riding on, we have to get an A+ on all of these picks, your franchise probably is not in a good spot. like in our lives, like if one bad thing happens and it just totally knocks us off course, like, we need to look inside and be like, okay, what is the status of my relationship with Christ?
How deep are the roots?
Yeah, exactly. How deep are the roots? And again,
Foundation.
Not saying perfection is necessary, but still need to do some evaluation on it. Like you're saying, how deep are my roots if a D grade or an F grade event totally knocked me off course? Definitely take some evaluation.
It's awesome. Good word from Luke. And so, yeah, so you can unpack that, this idea of draft grades. And I honestly, I'm encouraged because Carolina got very high marks. People seem to like what the Panthers
I wanted
did.
JC Horn. I was so upset.
So you wanted him. And so going back, I actually wanted Justin Fields. I just thought, man, it's hard to pass on that guy. But I will say that since that time, and just some of the research, and text my buddy with the Panthers who went to South Carolina, and so JC Horn went to South Carolina. I was like, all right, what's the story? Things have just been positive. I've heard positive responses, and so I'm all in. But I'll also go back to this kind of, and I'm going to write about this for today's Unpack This. The idea that when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback, and I think in many ways it's true. Because when you have kind of QB controversy, QB competition, it just creates so much tension in the locker room. It's so much better when a franchise is fully behind a quarterback. They go all in on him. They support him. They put all the pieces around him. And it's great to have a really good backup that comes in knowing that that is your role. I am a backup.
Yep.
But when you have Aaron Rodgers and you draft Jordan Love, you got yourself a mess. When you've got Sam Darnold and you just traded some picks for him, hey, just keep him and ride it out for the next 2 years. He's your guy. He's a franchise quarterback, at least for the next 2 years. And if it works out, the Panthers are loving life. They've got a corner that hopefully will be a 10-year NFL vet, if not longer, 6-time Pro Bowler, that type of thing. That's what you hope for. And so to me, like in Denver, they've got Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. They have no quarterback. Zero. San Francisco, like they're fine because if Trey Lance ends up panning out, but then they got Garoppolo. So they've got a mess on their hands. Like, so now they got to figure out what they're going to do unless they clearly say, hey, Trey Lance is going to sit here for a year. But then to me, it's like, why did you spend that third pick on him? So I'm not fully bought in on that situation. But I will say, leading up to the draft, I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea that the 49ers traded up to get Mac Jones. I was like, there's no way they're taking Mac Jones. I couldn't get there. And then, of course, he would end up falling to New England. I mean, there was so much that happened on the first night, especially, that like it was so predictable. It was like, yeah, of course that would happen. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And so I think I appreciate the Trey Lance pick because you feel like, okay, he could be a home run type of guy, the potential there. I just didn't understand it for San Francisco. But apparently, I guess John Lynch must have just been so sold on him that as soon as he saw his workout at North Dakota State, he's all in. I assume that was the case. But that's still, to me, it doesn't all add up. But now you got Garoppolo. You got to figure out where to go with him. Well, now New England, they're not going to get him. They're not. They got Mac Jones. They got Cam Newton. I'm not sure if they probably kind of a similar situation. You got 2 QBs, you don't have one. What are you going to do? Unless they're all sold that Cam Newton can ride it out this year and you let Mac Jones develop. So that'll be an interesting one to follow as well.
I think it'd be so fascinating if New England was trying to mimic the Kansas City Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes situation. Let's have Cam Newton, the opposite type of quarterback, pour into Mac Jones, who's a pocket passer, accurate passer. That would be a disaster. So,
it's kind of confusing. I will say it's a little confusing, but I wasn't surprised at all that Mac Jones wanted to go there. He was glad he fell there. But I'll say this: to me, he is now he carries the weight of being the heir apparent to Tom Brady. Cam Newton did not. Like he to me, Cam Newton is not the heir apparent to Tom Brady. He just is a stopgap guy. Cam's already done enough to have an awesome career. Like what he accomplished in Carolina, phenomenal. Took the Panthers to a Super Bowl. You know, you could question a couple things here or there about his personality and all that sort of thing, but he was great for this city. And so for him to go to New England to kind of extend his career, that's fine. But Mac Jones, he now puts on that weight of having to follow in Tom Brady's footsteps and live up to, well, we saw what Bill Belichick did with Brady. Just imagine what he can do with Mac Jones. And I think that's really hard to do. I really do.
He's built for it, though. Played with Saban, who is similar temperament to Belichick. Belichick. And he followed Jalen Hurts and Tua. He had any quarterback, it's already ingrained in him a little bit. I think he has the mental fortitude to succeed in New England. It's just a matter if he's good enough. But mentally, I think he can handle it.
All right, so let's figure out if there are any trends over the years. So, all right, Steve Young followed Joe Montana. Aaron Rodgers followed Brett Favre. Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. Daniel Jones, Eli Manning. Jeff Hostetler, Phil Simms. And then you look across the board and like Todd Collins after Jim Kelly, Jay Fiedler after Dan Marino. Let's see, Lamar Jackson after Joe Flacco, which is a stretch to put Flacco in that same conversation. Let's see, Justin Herbert, Phillip Rivers, Brian Greasy, John Elway, So it's just interesting to look back at some of those names. Jameis Winston now gets the chance to follow in Drew Brees' footsteps. But to me, I don't compare that because we already know who Winston is. I think it's different when you're drafted to replace the guy. And I think it's really hard. That's why Brian Griese, it was so difficult. Like it just when you're you got to live in the shadow of that quarterback. I think it's very difficult. Now, when you're Andrew Luck and you're like a can't miss guy, and when you're Aaron Rodgers, they just got lucky. Like to me, the Packers, that was just like he fell to him. That was just a wonderful situation, and he was kind of the right fit there. But that's the rare occasion. And I would argue that Jordan Love will not be that. I do not think that Jordan Love will fit in as well as Aaron Rodgers did following Brett Favre. So that's just my personal take. But any thoughts on the guy following the guy?
Dak Prescott following Tony Romo. had to shout. But no, I think you're onto something because Dak was not drafted to replace Romo. Dak was a fourth rounder. Like a fourth rounder, hey, we're going to draft a competent guy. He's going to be hopefully he can develop, be a good backup. Like Dak was never like Romo still had years left, and then injury, and then Dak dominated the preseason, and they went with him. It was like, hey, we're going to start Dak, and then he took off. So Dak never had the pressure he was not drafted as that guy. So I think you're onto something. Like if we think to our own lives, like how we walk into a situation mentally dictates a lot. So if you're a quarterback and you walk into a situation knowing that this franchise is coming off decades of success and now they lost their guy and I'm supposed to be the heir to the throne, man, that is some pressure. But if you walk in pressure free, hey, they don't expect me to do a ton. I can go out and just sling it around. I can go out and play my game. And if it works out, it works out. That is a way more comfortable situation to walk into.
Absolutely. That's why I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk. Like the pick for Mac Jones was a great pick. But again, will it play out as great as they expect it to? I have a tough time believing it. I really do. I just think, I think to your point about the pressure, I think it's tough, even though he probably can sit a year behind Cam Newton. But again, to your point, that's a different type of quarterback. And I'm not
totally
sure
different.
We'll have to see if Cam is that kind of guy. He hasn't necessarily been put in that position to mentor and train the guy that's going to replace him. How does he handle that? Because not everybody's set up for that. So, even a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who you thought was that guy last year, he goes, wait a second, I'm playing great and I got to hand this off to Tua. Are you kidding me? And then he leaves this year and goes, no, I'm going to go be a starter. Now, will he remain the starter in Washington? We'll see. But it's tough for those guys to have that mentor role. And even Joe Flacco. Is Joe Flacco, like at this stage of his career, Joe Flacco should absolutely be that guy. I'm not sure he's willing to be that guy. So it's a lot of dynamics. So a lot of dynamics with the quarterback position. And it's going to be fun this offseason to kind of keep an eye on all that. My last thought on the draft, and then we'll jump to Tap Drill and wrap up the show. Man, this show is flying by. So I always look at the offseason through the lens of fantasy football. And selfishly, I can't believe that the Jaguars drafted Travis Etienne in the first round.
Oh.
So one of the great storylines of the draft was the reuniting of college teammates.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Right? We had, the Alabama connection in Miami and Philadelphia. And then of course the Clemson connection in Jacksonville.
And Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Yes. The LSU connection there. So some really cool dynamics and you bring a receiver. Hey, this guy worked, well in together in college. Hey, why not try it in the NFL? Same even with the Panthers with their draft pick of the wide receiver from LSU. What's his name? Terrace Marshall. And so that was another Joe Brady. So Joe Brady reconnecting with his former wide receiver. But selfishly, James Robinson has been the running back in Jacksonville. I am in a keeper league in fantasy. And last year, James Robinson went undrafted. I could have kept him as a 16th round draft pick, thinking he's this workhorse back. I mean, he played like all season long. He was incredible for Jacksonville. As bad as they were, week in, week out, he was reliable. Well, now they bring in a home run hitter and Travis Etienne. What does that mean for James Robinson and his fantasy value? So that was the one pick of the night. At first, it was like, oh, cool. Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne together. Wait a second. What does that mean for my guy, James Robinson? I might not be able to keep him. On a positive note, TJ Hawkinson is the only weapon in Detroit, and Detroit still has no weapon. So I'll be keeping TJ Hawkinson. So there you go.
That is such a fascinating perspective of how to watch the draft.
Yes.
How does it affect fantasy sports?
Of course.
Because Daniel just commented, shot to the heart as a J-Rob owner in fantasy. That's so fascinating. Oh, wow. Really that's very true. Yeah, because Hawkinson, you're exactly right. He's
the number one guy. He's going to get 13 targets a game.
100%.
At least.
And especially, it's like the ultimate catch-22. If you're a Lions fan but also have Hawkinson on your fantasy team, it's like, man, what do you pull for? We want to load it. We need more weapons, or I'm trying to ride out a fantasy football championship. I'm trying to get a ring this year.
That's right. Even though I have 3 guys guarding them, but yeah. So overall, yeah, awesome draft, and we'll be talking about the ramifications and some of the other dominoes. And we haven't even really talked about Aaron Rodgers. All right, we got to get into Aaron Rodgers because this is such a big story, even though it's probably changing by the moment and where he's going to end up. To me, I was going through the teams. I was even listening to Dan Patrick this morning. The idea of Aaron Rodgers going to Cleveland is fascinating. Like, I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know if Cleveland would actually make that trade, but just the thought of it is fascinating because Cleveland, they're really good. Like, they have such a good roster, a good draft from what we can gather. They've got tons of weapons on offense. I mean, tons of weapons on offense. If Aaron Rodgers went there, could he bring a Super Bowl to Cleveland? If you're Cleveland, you go all in on that. Whereas, like you mentioned, teams like the Chargers, you don't give up on Justin Herbert because he's a 10, 15 year type of guy. Like, he showed that type of talent in year 1. So, like, I'm not sure you're willing to do that. If you're Oakland or Las Vegas, I'm not sure if Rodgers would want to go there. I don't think they're close enough. I don't necessarily they're okay. They got some young weapons, I guess. But, and then Denver has such a great defense. I just don't trust Vic Fangio as a head coach. Great defensive guy. How would him and Rodgers work out? So anyway, those are my initial thoughts on that. But I think he's gone. I really do. I think he's gone unless the Packers fire their GM. I think that ship sailed. Last year, because I was all in. That was the dumbest pick, like most people were, to draft Jordan Love. They blew it. For the Packers to squander this relationship and just only get one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, it's frustrating to me. And I know we've got a ton of listeners that are Packers fans, tons of people in the Unpacking It community that love the Packers. But I'm sorry, I can't believe they find themselves in this situation to not only end things so poorly with Brett Favre and then do it again, and then for Rodgers to not learn from the first experience being on the other side of it. It's just it's all fascinating to me. It really is.
Great points. It's so, as the Packers franchise, you were incredibly fortunate to luck into drafting one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. And that's not even up for debate. Like, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. It's not even debatable. He's got a Super Bowl. As a Cowboys fan, I've seen it firsthand. I mean, he's in the ultimate Cowboys heartbreaker. Like, he has shattered my heart on numerous occasions. And it's almost like the Packers. So I agree with you. Aaron Rodgers, when he was drafted, when they still had Brett Favre, he should be able to have perspective when Packers draft Jordan Love. But the Packers put some weapons around Rodgers, man. Every year we're like, who is he throwing to? And and then wins an MVP. Like, who is he throwing to? Outside of like one, like when he had Jordy Nelson, and this year, like, he's had some good talents, but then there's other quarterbacks who have way more talents.
It's a little overstated, but I think the idea, like, I think they've had some guys for sure. You got Devontae Adams, who's arguably the best receiver.
Outside of Devontae Adams, at least for me, I'm like,
yeah, but Tom Brady had Julian Edelman and Amendola and all these other guys that were nothing, and then they became something. So
I agree.
I'm not like arguing with you, but sometimes that take, like, I get frustrated by, he never had anybody. But at the same time, why don't the Packers just draft some other guys? Like
No,
draft
exactly.
Keep the cabin full, the cupboard
right.
full.
That's
so
right.
I agree with
you have Aaron Rodgers. Just keep putting weapons around him because you've seen what he's done with the weapons he already has. So give him more. But then it's almost like the Packers, they double down in spiting Aaron Rodgers this year. Like, okay, we'll get Jordan Love last year. This year, man, we'll have trade talks. We'll try to dish you. We won't do again what you say. It's just, it's unsalvageable. It's an unsalvageable situation.
I think it is.
Regarding the Browns, I think it's a perfect fit purely based on jerseys. So here's my take. I always love to bring in jersey colors because when we were talking about NFL playoffs, it was the worst jersey Hall of Fame game with Washington playing. I forgot who they played. The Bucks. Horrific jersey colors in that game. We've seen Aaron Rodgers sport the egregious throwback Packers jerseys with the tan
eliminate
pants.
that.
It's so bad. So hey, he can do that in Cleveland. Cleveland, you can never make the Cleveland colors look good. They're the Browns. Like no shots against the franchise, but they will forever be in the bottom quarter of jersey colors. Aaron Rodgers has already survived the horrific throwbacks in Green Bay. Hey, send him to Cleveland. Let him keep dominating in bad jerseys.
And he can handle the weather. It's like, maybe it's a little fantasy world. I don't know. But to me, it's like the idea of it is pretty good. It's pretty intriguing. It really is. And they've got the weapons and even the draft picks. Just trade everything. Trade whatever it takes. Because to me, I think Cleveland could make a deep.
They have a full roster. They have every position they need. They just need the big man.
They do. Speaking of team colors, so guess what I've been doing with little Maddie? Each morning we go over NFL logos.
Nice.
Maddie is learning the NFL logos. So we point: Broncos, Bills, Panthers, Colts. She's doing pretty well. Dolphins, Lions. She knows it. She knows
giving her
it.
those mini helmets? You putting like on a windowsill all the mini helmets?
That's what I need. That's what I need. I need all of our listeners to send me a mini helmet of your favorite team. How about that? And we'll give it to Maddie. That'd be cool. All right. So let's bring in Henry Bienamine from Connecticut. He's been working hard behind the scenes. Let's say good morning and let's do a tap drill to wrap up the show on this special edition Tuesday episode of Unpacking It. Henry, I like the background. Up close and personal. What's up, man? How are you? Uh-oh, we can't hear him. Oh, no. He's muted. We're having all sorts of audio problems today. It's a Tuesday. We don't know.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday. We don't know how to do this on Tuesdays. Yeah.
Maybe on the podcast it won't sound as bad. Chris can edit it out. But
what's going on, boys? You got me now?
Oh,
there he is.
He's there.
All right.
What's up, man?
What's going on? I've been listening backstage. Bryce, got a question for you. Do you see the entire football season, the entire NFL, through your team, the Carolina Panthers, or through your fantasy football team?
Ooh.
Very existential question there.
It is through fantasy. However, so my brother Colby, his favorite NFL team is his fantasy team, or his favorite football team is his fantasy team. And so my team is still the Panthers. Like I still care more about the Panthers winning. And I want to see them win a Super Bowl even more than I've won a fantasy before. So yeah, so I want to see them win Super Bowl before. Winning.
There was a pause there that must be no. There is a pause there that must be addressed. You are debating a fantasy football ring,
which I have two of them right here. I've got two.
You're debating a fantasy football ring or a Carolina Panthers Super Bowl. So we must address that because that is that's a fascinating dynamic here. Because I am far less a fantasy person than you are. I enjoy fantasy football. You are more bought in with the Dynasty League, all that stuff. But yes. I feel like
Fantasy Football Fellowship here at Unpacking It.
100%. Fantasy Football Fellowship, all that stuff. Fantasy football, great, offers a ton. I could not pass up the opportunity for the Cowboys to win a Super Bowl, especially given the utter heartbreak my entire life has been as a Cowboys fan. So let me just toss that to you because there was a pause.
Wait a minute. Heartbreak? The Dallas Cowboys have 5 Super Bowls. I think you guys will be.
He hasn't been alive. He hasn't been alive.
Because anytime I try to ride the coattails of the 90s Cowboys, and I get thrown into the fire with that. So I am all in on, you know what? I've never seen success in my lifetime. I will embrace that. But man, please. I'm holding on to the Mavericks championship in 2011. But besides that, man, it has been despair.
Wait, Luke. That means you haven't seen a Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl in your lifetime?
No, I'm a 97 boy.
Wow.
Oh man.
Wow.
That's awesome. Good for you. Hey, soak it in. Soak it in. Drink the coffee. I don't even know why you are a Cowboys fan. You should have jumped on some other bandwagon during that time.
I'm loyal.
Super Bowls. Your
I'm
whole life.
loyal.
Wow.
Only a team. Or Tom Brady, I should say. All right, but yeah, no, I would rather the Panthers win than me win, I don't know, my 10th fantasy championship. I've lost count. No, I've won two key ones. I've won 2 key ones with the rings. All right, let's do tap drill. We're running out of time. But we got 5 good topics, 5 good taps to tap around, a little fun little stories just to goof around with Henry. Henry, take it away.
All right, boys. Let's stay in the draft, and we're going to go to Buffalo. We're going to go to the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to go to the 3rd round pick of the Buffalo Bills. Now, you may not know who it is, but I'm pretty sure all of social media knows. His name is Spencer Brown. He is a 6'8" offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. And so he had about 40 or 50 people at his draft party. And then when he got drafted, you see all the people, you see the shots of all the family members. When he got drafted, it literally turned from 40 or 50 people into his entire town on his front lawn. And so what he did was to ingratiate himself with the Bills Mafia, and anybody knows anything about football, Bills Mafia is the Bills fan base. He decided to jump off his awning or whatever the case was. If you want to know about it, go Google it. And he went through a table.
That's right.
WWE style.
Embrace it.
6'8" offensive tackle going through a WWE style table. What is your favorite celebration?
I love it. Well, I'll say this. The idea when a player joins a team or a city that fits his personality, it's so good. Best. It's the best because it doesn't always happen. Like you fill a locker room with all sorts of backgrounds and personalities, and they don't always necessarily fit in perfectly to the culture of that team or of that fan base. But every once in a while, it clicks, and so this sounds like a winner for Buffalo. And Bills fans are special. They're unique. Bills Mafia. You got to love it. The Bills are relevant. They're good. They're loyal. And now they got a guy who's willing to jump through a table like their diehard fans do during tailgates. Pretty sweet.
In regards to celebrations, we have to shout out Joe Horn because we talked about J.C. Horn. Right. Joe Horn with the flip phone under the goalpost. And then Michael Thomas redid it. Wasn't near as good. Cowboys, we've had some great players for celebrations. Terrell Owens was a king of celebrations for a while with the popcorn, even though when he was not on the Cowboys, some disrespect running to the star against the Cowboys. And then a fascinating, I think it was Amari Cooper. I can't remember who did it, but someone did the Markelle Fultz free throw as a celebration. Which was so tough because they did like the hitch and it was, I'm like, man, that's just poor Markelle Fultz. Anyway, I didn't think we were going to talk about Markelle Fultz today, but
I don't know how you got a Markelle Fultz mention.
We got a Markelle Fultz into a podcast. How about that? Yeah. All right, next one. We're going to stay in the NFL and we're going to talk about a guy that we all know, Tim Tebow. Now, Tim Tebow was a quarterback when he came around the NFL the first time. Didn't quite pan out, but word has it that he went into the Jacksonville Jaguars organization, talked to Urban Meyer, his old head coach, and asked him to give him a tryout as a tight end. What do you guys think of Tim Tebow, the tight end?
I am all in on Tebow doing anything. I'm in. I'm a Tebow fan. Tebow Mania, still one of the best sports runs that I've experienced as a fan. Back in, I guess it was 2011, that year in Denver. I mean, that was must-watch TV. It was thrilling. It was unbelievable. But to me, the life that Tebow lives, the example that he lives out his faith. Keep him around, whatever it means. Now, if he's going to try out at tight end, he better be able to play. But I think it's worth a shot. I think it's a little questionable when it comes to how will the other players in the locker room, will they lose respect for Urban Meyer if he just goes all after his guys? You know, he got Carlos Hyde and, got different guys to come in that maybe he coached or has been a part of in previous years. That's sometimes questionable when college coaches take over. Matt Rule's doing it in Carolina. He's been adding guys, but some of them have panned out well, like Robbie Anderson worked out really well. So that's kind of my hesitation with it. But as far as Tebow, he can play tight end. Come on. He can do it. He can learn it. He can play it. If he picked up a baseball bat after all those years and did a lot better than most people expected, he can do tight end at 33, 34 years old. Let's go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He can play tight end. If you're Jacksonville,
they don't have a tight end.
And to grow the franchise, Tim Tebow's great for publicity. If you're the owner, you love it. An interesting note on Urban Meyer, though, because Urban Meyer said in one of the draft interviews, we don't want distractions in the locker room, which is hard to take at face value given his track record and quite many distractions over the years in various different locker rooms.
Which isn't fair. Like that, to me, that's like such a bad reason to not give him a chance. Like I understand.
I agree.
Right. It's just disappointing that becomes the thing.
I agree. No, but I'm a huge Tebow fan. I think he's great for any sport. Wherever Tebow is, fans come, obviously haters come, but he's just so fun to watch, whether it's in football, baseball. I would love to see him at tight end. And and people are gonna slam him because, oh well, we've been asking you to play tight end your whole career. Like, no, like he was a quarterback. He wanted to play quarterback. That's fine. Go play quarterback. Yeah. He had a playoff win, which is more than 99% of everyone in the world. So I will never have that. But I love watching Tebow. I think he's great for football.
All right, next
holding out hope that he said.
Yeah.
Next topic. Let's go to the NBA. Now, I don't know if you were watching the NBA last night on ESPN. They had the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Golden State Warriors, who are trying to shoot up into the play-in tournament. And, of course, Steph Curry's trying to make his case for NBA MVP. Now, the ESPN2 broadcast was a little bit different. I don't know if you guys are into Marvel. So what they had was called the Arena of Heroes, and they had certain players on each team representing Marvel superheroes, and they made it a tournament-style, fantasy-style tournament, and the guy who wound up winning was Draymond Green. And so Draymond Green got a comic book cover with him posing with the Marvel superheroes. So my question to you guys is, if you're a Marvel fan, one favorite hero?
So I am not a big Marvel guy. However, last night's broadcast, I watched it. It was awesome. It was clever. It was catchy. It was absolutely worth the effort to do it. Have an alternative viewing option. I love when sports leagues and broadcasters are creative. I am all for trying things. Even if they fail, like give it a whirl. What they did with Nickelodeon last year, I thought was great. Yeah. It was fun with the slime and all that. Keep that stuff going. Do it. Like you still have your main, traditional feed, but we got all these different networks. They don't know what to put on TV anymore because we got all these streaming stuff too. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And so I thought it was cool. I especially loved where the name popped up, like, so you knew who the guy was. Because sometimes you're watching, you're like, wait, who is that guy? And they don't always mention who that player is, but they would have like a little graphic that showed who the player was during the play. To me, that's a wonderful feature, whether it's related to Marvel or not. I think that's awesome. Now, in regards to Marvel, so I've seen a couple of the superhero movies over the years. I liked Iron Man, and Captain America was okay, and I did not like Thor. I love Ant-Man, Paul Rudd. I'm a fan of Paul Rudd, so that's my guy. But I don't rush out. I don't dress up and get ready for Marvel night or whatever. But good for those guys that do. But I don't have any Spider-Man tights laying around the house. I'm sorry.
Wow.
So
You have painted two opposite ends of the spectrum here. You either can only watch a few, or if you watch them all, dressing up in Spider-Man tights comes with the package.
You've got to. So I'm out. I'm out on that. Batman's cool. I like the Dark Knight movies. Those are great. But I don't know what's Marvel. I don't know what DC is. I don't know. I don't even know if maybe once I've opened a comic book. Now I've still got all my trading cards growing up from sports, but I just didn't get into so I'm not, listen, I know we got listeners that love it. I got friends that love it. Okay, great. That's awesome. My brother Trey likes some of the Marvel stuff, but for me, I'm just not into it. But bringing it into the NBA last night, hey, that was cool. That was good
you're
stuff.
a realist. You're a realist. You don't have time for that
Yeah,
stuff.
kind of. I was even talking to Jody this week. Like, I don't necessarily like every action movie either. Like, I'd rather watch a real life type of movie. Like, sometimes the action movies to me, it's all the same, just car chase. For me, it's just not. I don't know. I don't know why.
Yeah. Give you a rom-com. You're like
give me a rom-com, baby.
Rom-com
Humanity. Let's go. All right, I love you, man.
All right, one more. Let's do one more. We're going to go into the world of baseball. Now, we have Oakland Athletics relief pitcher Jesus Luzardo. So now you know how guys do when they're in the clubhouse, whether they're before a game or after a game, they bring their Xbox, they bring their PS5, whatever gaming console that they prefer. So he's sitting there. So he's sitting there in his locker. He's playing the game, and what happens is that I don't know what brought out this emotion. So he decides that whatever was going on wasn't in his favor. He bangs on the table while playing his game. And now he's on the injured list because he broke his thumb.
Oh, what a knucklehead.
Wow.
Oh, I hate to say it. All right. So now that I am 34 years old, God continues to change me, mold me, shape me. Now that I have got little Maddie, I'm a lot calmer. But when I was growing up and I was playing video games, I was the worst. I would get so angry when I would lose. I would slam my controller. I would throw it. I would do very hurtful things. It was not very nice. And I don't know if I ever broke my finger, but Trey, my youngest brother, he would beat me in video games all the time. And I would get so angry. And so I just had to retire from video games. That's my recommendation. In order to avoid any injuries, I'm out. I'm out on video games. I can't handle it. So
were you turned the game off at halftime if you were a losing guy?
No, I would make excuses for why I was losing. I would say, there's a glitch in this game. There's a glitch. Something's wrong with this game. I don't know. My controller's not working. There's no way that I should be losing this game. This is a stupid game. This game was poorly made. This game was poorly manufactured. So I would just shift the blame.
I'm not surprised at all, given the previous stories of you as a fan of chirping away at a Duke UNC game, stealing the T-shirt from a little kid. Man.
God's got to work on me. I still got a ways to go. I've gotten better at a few things, but basically I've stopped playing video games and stopped playing basketball because once I step into either arena, it's not good. And I stopped going to games. I just stay home.
That's what the man cave was for. The man cave is really just a fortress to retreat to instead of going to games in person.
The fortress of solitude, as it were.
That's it. Well, we've gone long, but great stuff out of Henry. Appreciate all your hard work, man. Another fun show here on Unpacking It. Luke, you're the man. Great work. As we wrap things up, I let people know I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I'm broken in need of a savior. I'm thankful that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I have been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together, growing each day, changing each day, looking to him, the author and perfecter of our faith. And so I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank God and praise God that Jody is okay. after yesterday's situation that we had to end up at the emergency room. And so we're thankful for that and glad to be with you on this Tuesday. Thanks for your patience and thanks for your support as a listener. And be sure to check out our website, unpackingit.com. We got a devotional that will go out today, Unpack This, about when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. And in life, when we can't serve two masters. So we can't serve God and money. So I'll be writing about that later today. So be looking out for that. We'll be back, hopefully, Lord willing, next Monday, 10:30 a.m. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever else you can find us. We're always on the podcast. Check that out. If you didn't listen to the podcast with Tom Allen, Indiana head coach, highly recommend that one. Go listen to that right now. He was awesome. Phenomenal guest. So we appreciate him being a part of the show as well. For Luke, for Henry, for Chris, I'm Bryce Johnson. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It Live podcast.